Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rovertime Podcast, episode number 14. My name is Minding Freedom, and I'm today's host. With me are Mark Wazz.
Click.
Yeah, say at least something. Stan Konopka.
Hello.
Ryan.
Click.
And Lex.
Hello.
All right, we were not on the air last week, so we have something to catch up to. But well, we won't really do that because we have a very, very important topic to talk about. You can see it in the title, the transgender military ban, or Tranny Ban, which it rolled so nicely off the tongue. So Donald Trump announced on Twitter, of all places, that transgender people are no longer accepted or allowed in the U.S. Armed Forces. Anyone with any thoughts on that?
Well, we were originally going to have a guest today, just if anyone was wondering why we changed the title, but they couldn't make it. But we have a friend, and we won't say who, we won't give too many details, but they were transgender until they decided it wasn't the right course for them to follow down. So they also agreed that they wholeheartedly agreed with the ban. So I thought that was interesting. The
biggest issue I had with the ban is not the actual ban itself, and that seems to be sort of a rolling theme with a lot of people, even that agree with it. Because obviously, it's really easy for everyone to be like, well, if it affects combat effectiveness, which surgeries and hormones and mental issues and all the emotional stuff that comes with such a heavy, life-changing thing, that's a really easy argument to make, right? Like this is a logical one that's kind of an easy one to win. But I do have to kind of give the other side like some credit on Trump did it really badly. Like 3 tweets and didn't coordinate with the Defense Department to like roll out policy, and like it may or may not actually be in effect yet, or like apparently orders haven't even gone out. Nobody knows what's going to happen to anyone who has already come forward and is like, I'm transgendered in the military. And like, are they going to be shoveled out, or like, are they going to be able to recant that? Nobody knows. And that's not a good position to have.
Well, we could talk about this, like you said, we could talk about the easy arguments in a bit. But yeah, the way he rolled it out is interesting. But I also saw some people share some memes about it, and Trump is playing everyone like a fiddle. I mean, it was a meme with Trump talking to Mattis, like, watch, I'll bet you I can get liberals to defend joining the military.
I laughed so hard when I saw that one. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I just sends out a tweet, and all of a sudden, we can serve in the military too. They can serve in the military too, and they start, defending joining the military, even though they hate America, a lot of them. And
but at the same time, if you allow anyone to serve in the military, you basically destroy the military. And after all, that's what the left wants, or at least some on the left.
I mean, there are a lot of people on the left who would love for the military to become a social program in and of itself, and they see it very much that way, that its main mission should be humanitarian, that it should be much more akin to the Peace Corps, but with big guns, like to help out occasionally. Like that's their idea of what the U.S. military would do. And I mean, that's sort of a neoliberal concept of the military, that it goes around the world helping out and occasionally, putting a bullet in the head of a dictator. Like, they're really good with that, right? And, the neocons are also good with the bullet in the head of the dictator, but they want to, leave the guys with the guns there to help the corporations come in and, set up oil rigs and whatever. These are the stereotypes we live with, right? That's what everyone says, oh, they hate these politicians. That's what they're talking about. But at the end of the day, like, this is one of the most rational things Trump has done, like, in tweet form at least. Like, of his crazy tweets that come out, you're like, oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, if someone was already in the military, I can't necessarily say they should, and if they've proven they can handle it, I also don't necessarily agree, just from a devil's advocate, if it's a, say a non-combat position, if they're just, a paper pusher, in the military, I wouldn't necessarily have a problem, with that. But, I think Lady Gaga tweeted inadvertently supporting this by saying, they already have this high suicide rate and you make this announcement. It's like, yeah, that's exactly why this is being done, because we can't, they can't have this kind of, you have to be mentally strong, physically strong. I've seen a lot of people saying, if you had diabetes, because they can't guarantee your medicine, they can't guarantee you your counseling, so I think, that's part of the strongest argument for them not being, out in active combat situations. I would, but I understand that, it could potentially be a hard distinction to make, but, I wouldn't have a problem if there was someone that was going to be just in a base, never being in combat. Of course, saying never being in combat, I guess with the military, you can never say never, because if something catastrophic happens, they probably have all hands on deck. So,
well, but this is the thing: we have medical waivers already. If you have to have 20/20 eyesight to be a fighter pilot, right? But if you get through flight school and you're trained on your fighter craft, and you have your hours, and all of a sudden, like, your eyesight starts slipping, you can go get LASIK or glasses, and they're not drumming you out. That was, it's $1 billion to train you to fly that aircraft. We're not wasting that.
Right.
Same thing with diabetes. If you develop diabetes, after you're in for X number of days, they're not going to scrap all the investment they put into you because you can't be necessarily the most frontline troops, because medicine, like you said, can't be a guarantee, because there's tons of support roles,
right,
that the military needs. And this is, again, a tiny population that I if Trump really wanted to get out ahead of it, could have been like, if they're in now, they're fine. We'll find ways to utilize them. They'll serve their country. Right. But recruitment going forward is basically going to be the don't ask, don't tell of transgenderism. If you can make it through the military not saying anything, you're cool.
And this seems to be, again, one of those issues where it's just, what percentage of people is this? I mean, how many transgender people are truly lining up to enlist?
Yeah, I think the number was like 2,000.
There are a lot of different numbers.
That seems high to me.
That does.
The highest number was 15,000.
Yeah, that's what Caitlyn Jenner said. There's 15,000 current.
Yeah.
Even if that number, based on the number of active military they are, it's still not even 1%. I mean,
it is closely, because active personnel is 1.3 million, and 15,000 would be a bit more than 1%, but still
barely.
Yeah.
But that's, yeah, but 15,000. Come on. I mean,
so here's the thing. I kind of buy like a little bit of the higher end number, because I can totally see people who are in that sort of really confused state being like, I'm going to do the most manly thing in the universe, and that's go serve in the military and like be a Marine or something, or at least in the Army, or one of those like that. That makes sense to me as like part of the psychological coming to grips with gender dysphoria. I could totally see that being something that happens quite a bit. That's just like my anecdotal personal experience with some of the people I've known who've like felt this way. They've definitely been dramatically over exaggerated into either the gender they were born into or the gender they want to go to, and it's gone both ways, and it's just kind of personal individual stuff. But
yeah, I would think, I mean, I understand your point, but I could think, I mean, there's a lot of other ways I would think if someone was having this kind of an issue, hey, let me go sign up for the military and potentially get myself killed just to prove I'm having problems. Oh, I get it.
18-year-olds never think they're going to die, regardless of what they're signing up for. So, like, we all know as adults, like, the military is kind of deadly, and you have a real good chance of being maimed and injured. But they don't think about that. And especially, like, I hate to say this, but like, people with gender dysphoria have an added mental complexity issue going on there. Even if you just were totally going to be accepting of it and say, no, it's a normal thing, it happens to people, there's no stigma to it, awesome, cool. It's still a complicating factor in all things.
Well, and that, and that stigma part, I was watching, as on Saturday nights, I usually watch Water's World and the Greg Gutfeld show. I just find them mostly humorous. And Waters had on the transgender. The picture was going around who he used to be a SEAL, and he had the beard, and now he's a woman. And he said the reason the suicide rate is so high is because they get picked on so much by general society. And I found that statement to be wildly out of whack, because most of the suicide rate are when they're very young and probably have not even begun any sort of transitioning. And I found that rationale to be a bit misleading. Just to say, well, it's because we get picked on by people. I'm like, there's never a time more in society where, you know, being this way is as accepted as it is today, no matter what they might want to say.
You saw the Ben Shapiro video on that, where he had like the same discussion where like ordinary people get bullied too, and like their suicide
all the time.
Yeah.
I had huge glasses in school. I got bullied constantly. Everyone gets bullied, you know. But when this one specific subset has a, you know, suicide rate 3 to 4 times higher than the rest of the country, getting bullied is not. It's crazy.
I think it's like 10 times higher. It's like 4% versus 41%. Like it's like 10 times higher than ordinary people.
It's 4 times the military rate is what I've been reading, I think.
Oh, okay, all right.
That's where that stat's coming from.
It's wild.
Yeah. It is comparable. This is what I looked at. It's comparable to the suicide rate of people with depression, bipolar disorder, or schizophrenia. I hope I pronounced that correctly. All of which, by the way, disqualify you from the military.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I was actually looking at suicide statistics too, because I got into an argument with somebody about the Foxconn plant that's going in Wisconsin, I think, and they were making the classic joke about, oh, you know, the company that had put up nets because their employees were treated so badly they were committing suicide all the time. And it's like, well, when you actually delve into it, Foxconn employees are apparently some of the lowest likelihood to commit suicide in all of China, because the country has an astonishingly high suicide rate for typical citizens. And then I looked at what other kind of similar scenarios. Do you have a city-sized factory of 250,000 people, and their rate in their worst year, the only really bad year they had, was 10 in every 100,000, which was apparently comparable to MIT's, and not for 1 year. Every year, that is MIT's suicide rate. And I'm like, so apparently there's just something about stressful situations. And that I was really shocked when I started looking at college suicide rates, because that is like an isolated community of people who should be mentally healthy and have like support networks and people helping them out, right?
Well, you would
no, that's not college.
but in MIT, but you know, you also got to think in MIT, you know, going there, that is a huge expectation, not only that they were probably putting them on themselves, but is being put on them by their family, and just, okay, this is a really expensive school. This should lead to a very successful life for me. And if someone finds that it's too much and they're not living up to it, I mean, I don't agree with it, but I could see where someone would be like,
here's the thing. MIT's was slightly higher. I agree that you're probably right, and that sounds logical. And MIT's is slightly higher than the average rate for four-year universities, but not demonstrably. In fact, you are more likely to commit suicide going to college than you are just as an average, everyday 20-year-old kid running around America.
Well, if I went to Evergreen, I'd be looking to put something through my brain too. So
I could see that.
Be less painful than showing up to class at that place again. But yeah, I mean, but all these things, it's, the point being, you can't just say, well, we need to give them a try with this clear. I mean, when literally almost, half of the people in this small subset commit suicide. I mean, it's not a statistic you can just dismiss and say, well, don't be mean and don't be transphobic. That's not it at all. That's not a valid.
In a world where we repeatedly continue to say our response to tragedy is we don't take mental health seriously and we don't understand it very well and we don't express it very well, we seem really blasé about tossing out,
Right. Then in this case, where you're taking it seriously,
yeah,
that's considered, making it worse. No,
right?
It's
honestly, it is. I think it is a lot harder to treat somebody for wanting to go out and violently kill people than it is somebody who wants to commit suicide. Because at least you have the hope that the people who want to commit suicide are going to reach out for help to somebody and give the indication that they're going to do something harmful to themselves. Because as much as there's a stigma to it, most people have a self-preservation, ability to them. But people that want to do actual harm to other people, they generally keep that shit seriously or secret, because obviously they don't want to get arrested. They want to complete their goal, right?
Well, in particular with even if it's committing suicide, if you're in the military, that's not just affecting you. I mean, if you're in a unit with somebody and you decide to do this, a gun goes off. You got a lot of people that are, ultra hyper vigilant with weapons. That
Minding freedom's an autistic fag. Catch you later, guys.
Okay.
What the fuck was that?
Dr. Manhattan, everyone.
That was speaking of Tranny Banny. Get back Dr. Manhattan out of here.
He's already out.
But no, I mean, I think Mark had said it. Considering this the way Trump has rolled stuff out before, this is I would have liked to have seen it a little bit more. I hate to say it, but professional. But I mean, the message itself, I don't have any issue with it myself.
Does anyone think Kelly's gonna ship the shape quickly here? Get him to maybe put down the Twitter again?
Has he been able to before?
He hasn't, but Kellyanne Conway did during the campaign because, she made it clear if you want to win, you're going to give me your phone. And apparently supposedly that worked. That was the rumor. So I'm wondering if he can come in and be like, Mr. President, and then you just stop using the Twitter. Clear what you're saying through other people. Don't do it at 3 a.m. If you want to call and, or you want to call somebody and tell them how stupid someone's being, here's my phone number. I'm at your service. And we'll see what we can do about it. But
and don't tweet and drink cafefe.
Going back just a few minutes here, I wonder if we're looking at this point like too much from the perspective of the transgenders and not enough. But we're not giving enough importance to looking at it from the military's perspective, because we touched on it just a little bit earlier. But the military is not a social experiment. It's not meant to be inclusive. It's meant to be the best of people who can be focused and to be the most effective team of fighters. That's what its purpose is. And if you introduce people that have conditions that hinder them from being so qualified, that's not good for other members of that unit like you were talking about. It's also not good if they have to fulfill a mission to defend our nation. We need the best of the best. They're not even ordinary people. They're...
Well, I mean, like Lex brought up, college before. Colleges like MIT, Harvard, Yale. Not everyone gets into those places, I mean, Evergreen had like a 98% acceptance rate. Sure, if you want to make it to Salvation Army, go ahead, knock yourself out. Everyone can be there. But Mark's right. It asks you. There are a lot of expectations, and it's not a right that you can serve in the military.
So, I mean, I agree with the goal of what you're saying. The idea that the U.S. Armed Forces should be the best of our physical specimens going out there to defend our Constitution, and hopefully in a greater way our principles and our culture and our our ideals. Right? That's the idealistic way. But the U.S. military, pretty much throughout its history, has been not necessarily the best and brightest. There's nothing to detract from the service, but it has always been a way for people who have been unprivileged, I guess, in the vernacular of the left, to elevate their station in life, right? And it's been one of the honorable ways you could elevate yourself in society. And it's definitely something to continue as a tradition, because it's worked. People that are, I guess, hungry for that elevation tend to succeed in that system, and I'm okay with that. If these guys are not combat effective, then yeah, it's a non-starter, and that should be point number one of like, do you serve in the military? Can you shoot people effectively, or fly a plane, or steer a drone? Like, okay, cool, you're in if you're helpful, but I'm okay with the little bit of a social experiment side of it, just because if prejudices are losing us good soldiers, that's a bad thing. But I don't think it has to be necessarily you want the best and the absolute best, going to situations where they're going to be killed off. That's maybe a negative in the end. Just as an institutional goal, I'm not sure that's what we would want to try to do.
Right.
And you basically killed the whole conversation.
Damn it. Do I get a point at least?
All right. What else is on the itinerary for tonight?
I was
Lauren Southern got kicked from Patreon. I saw that.
Yeah, but that was last week.
Yeah,
And,
I know.
I mean, we weren't on the air last week, so we could cover it. But I had one more point from the chat from the best answers, who wrote in the chat, suicides. What was that ringtone?
That was me. Sorry.
Anyway, okay. I was just weirded out a little. Suicides within a military platoon raises the odds of the other soldiers in that platoon to commit suicide. Since we talked about the whole transgender suicide risk statistics, I think you have to consider this as well. If you have a transgender in the platoon, and that transgender person commits suicide, well, you get a few non-transgenders who commit suicide as well, very likely at least. But yeah, now it seems like I killed the conversation. Let's go on. You said Lauren Southern banned from Patreon. Okay, I try to summarize this as good as possible. I mean, I should be able to. I made a video on that. So basically what happened is, yeah, Lauren Southern got banned from Patreon because, as Patreon stated in their mail to Lauren, she was raising funds for actions that are likely causing a loss of life, meaning the whole Defend Europe mission. Defend Europe, if someone does not know what this is a mission in the Mediterranean Sea planned by Generation Identity, who basically chartered a ship and are sailing, sailing through, not sailing, what's the word for boats? Driving? No, what do you say? Cruising, yeah, thank you. Cruising through the Mediterranean to bring migrants back to Africa and not bring them to the European countries, mostly to Italy. And that's the whole mission. So to me, when I look at it, I made a video on that. I stated that before. To me, it doesn't seem like it is likely that this mission causes loss of life. Yet, Jack Conte, who is the CEO of Patreon, made a video about it a few days ago, explaining himself, and Jay Fry said it in the chat. He talked about manifest observable behavior. That's a term I never heard before. Have you? Any of you?
So I saw his response video. I haven't seen Tim Pool's video on it, on the response, or Lauren Southern's response to it yet. I haven't had a chance, but I'm interested to watch those because I actually did pretty much nuke my Patreon account. I defunded everybody on there and started finding other avenues to send cash to the people I wanted to support because you can see where they are definitely taking a political bent in their priority scheme. But after seeing his response, I at least get where they're coming from, and I know I wasn't probably alone in moving quickly away from Patreon, but I'm absolutely positive that I was not in like some obscene majority that made them, panic that they were going to be out of business next month either. So the fact that they reached out, put out a video, said, hey, this is why, these are the people, these are what they did, here's what we looked at, here's why we made our decision. And that kind of transparency, I actually have to give a lot of respect, and it has made me at least consider going back. Because that kind of communication is a dialogue that we probably would serve us well with Twitter and YouTube and other platforms, and I can see where they're coming from. Well, I don't agree with it. But.
Patreon, I don't think they were offering any kind of dialogue because, like Lauren Southern said, there's no appeal to it because they already made the decision. They said that it's not reversible. So
yeah,
but it's not really a dialogue. It's just like
they're at least giving their thought process in it, so we can talk about it here. And I mean, I don't know. I would have to see some evidence from Generation Identity that would show them to be more in the right, because their claims are somewhat extreme. Not extreme. They require some backing. You have a lot of NGOs and a lot of government officials and a lot of people saying, "Hey, we've been doing these good things, and this is for saving people's lives." And Generation Identity is saying, no, you guys are smuggling people. So the second half of their mission, which seems to be what they're focusing on a lot more now, which is observing and documenting the inaction and the failures for the NGOs, that would be a much better mission for them to focus on. And if they bring that evidence, then all of a sudden I'm going to be in a different position where I kind of have to agree that. And I would hope Patreon would reverse themselves and say, okay, yeah, these people had a point and they were right. And no, the better thing here is to let them continue doing their mission. But if they are, and they did state they were trying to get in the way of other boats in the sea, and I can get why they would be against helping that, if that makes sense. They gave them enough rope to hang themselves, is basically what I can see.
And I will say, from the Patreon, at least it's not like the Twitter or YouTube where it's just a blanket key phrase ban. It seemed like, they actually did some individual research. Look, they researched Sargon and didn't, take him down. So, it's good that he put that video out because their original response was, well, this is what we're doing. You can't appeal.
Mm-hmm.
And just pretty much the end of it. So, they did take an additional step. I do see that the Patreon, that he is also slated to be on with Dave Rubin. So I will be interested to see and listen to that interview. But, I understand, some of our favorite, creators, Roaming, Matt, and Blonde, have expressed concern. Where I think Lauren was a different creature was, she wasn't just sitting behind a camera creating videos and reporting on, like Roaming, Matt, Blonde, and so many others. She, like you said, she was going on boats. She's going into the, into the middle of Antifa in Germany, and she called, I forget the term, what she called herself, but she was making herself as part of the story, not just a commentator on the story.
The term is gonzo journalist.
Gonzo, thank you. Wow, I should be embarrassed. The German's correcting me on some. But that would be my only, I guess, kind of caveat to it is the fact that she does that. You could see, someone like Tommy Robinson having the same, same situation. Whereas, like, say, Paul Joseph Watson, yeah, he runs his mouth a lot, but he does it in front of a screen. So, where I guess, where is their line? I don't like their definition of why it was. That seemed to be just a bunch of buzzwords strung together to try and, make people all like, wait, what does that mean? Okay, I guess I'll take that because I feel like I should probably know what you're talking about, but I don't. So,
I mean, I feel like Blonde just did a video on this too, where she talked about using the tactics of the left, and she kind of came from the other direction. She came to the same sort of thing of the manifest observable, in that she said it was okay to use the left's tactics when there was a high risk of violence or imminent violence or the threat of material violence. Like, this is, and it's all kind of coming to that same point of like, where do we go to the level of deplatforming or taking away someone's ability to speak? When is that okay? Because it is. We've all agree on that at some extent. It's just, where do we put that line? And it hasn't really been negotiated out very well before, either inside the politosphere of YouTube or even in real life. Like, these are not really well-defined boundaries for anybody. So my initial response with what Patreon put out was so bad. I thought they'd acted so out of character for what their platform is supposed to be doing, and made that judgment call on behalf of their entire user base. But after they explained themselves, get it a little better. I'm still not 100% sold, but the steps they want to take to create something more of an objective standard, or at least a community guideline that actually involves community people who care about free speech, I could, if they deliver on most of those promises, I could probably get behind the platform again and continue being a user of it. If it's all talk and nothing happens, and we see a couple token bannings of the worst of the worst on the left, and all of a sudden they start banning a whole lot more people on the right or in the identitarian movement, then I'm probably going to be like, all right, these people will eventually come for people that I like, and I want to encourage them as quickly as possible to go somewhere else.
I'm just seeing in the chat that the best answers just wrote, new appeals process being looked at by Patreon. Not known if it will be open to Lauren. Which, I mean, I haven't seen that before, but if that's true, that might be their saving grace to get back the people they lost with this action.
I probably won't leave Patreon right now. I still think it's good. I just think that this situation kind of sucks. But
I think it's ongoing still. Like I said,
I think you shouldn't leave a Patreon. Because I mean, what I will do, being some kind of content creator now myself. Where the fuck did Ryan leave? Anyway, just saw that. Where the fuck is he gone? But yeah, what I will definitely do, being some kind of content creator myself now. Stay on Patreon, but at the same time, wait for other platforms to be developed, like Gab is doing, and maybe Minds. I don't know what they have in mind.
Minds actually just created. They just started up their like if you refer your Minds to someone else and they take it and then they spend money on like credits or whatever. You get 25%.
Yeah, this whole thing, the recommendation stuff, yeah. But in order for Minds to work, they have to do something like Patreon does, that you can give on a monthly basis. They have some kind of it already. Tim Pool uses it on Minds, where you can, I think you have to give him like $10 a month, and you can see exclusive contents behind the scenes and stuff like that. But it needs to be more flexible than that. Just one missing word again. Damn it. Just go with the saying. One size fits all won't work. They have to do flexible that the user can decide how much he gives, and then the creator has, like on Patreon, kind of a list or a tier system where he decides, okay, if you give me that much, you get this and that reward. If mine goes there, there might be our Patreon competitor. I think Gab is doing something like that. I think this is where Gab is going, and always try, like in the stock market, it's the same. Always try to diversify. You know, always try to have multiple horses running in the same race. And most creators have a Patreon. They have PayPal. They get the ad revenue from YouTube, and I'm pretty sure a lot of them will use something like what Gab is developing right now. So just stay everywhere, and as soon as you have no more creators to support on one platform, well, yeah, of course, then you can leave, because why should you stay there?
Well, that's the thing. It's having more options is certainly not a bad thing, right? And if this is the spark that encourages more competition in there, because the worst case scenario is that you have only really one legitimate outlet for this, and then they don't innovate at all. There's no reason for them to compete. And Patreon was almost, and honestly, I kind of wonder about their team's choices here, because they were on their way to being that platform. They would have cornered the market on it completely, because like Minds had to rush something out, and Gab had to build something, and like there's a bunch of other. I've seen a couple of other options that all skew really far right wing with their like a lot of them are very alt right. Like they fundraise for
Patreon.
Yeah, Patreon. There's another one that I found, and they were all really focused. Like all of their front page people were legitimate. Like at minimum, they were people trying to fight for like a white nation, and at worst, I think one of them I saw was like a legit guy who I think might be an anti-Semite. His video was kind of creepy and funny if it was a joke, and just creepy and sad if it wasn't. But it's one of those things where, like, all right, you guys are on the way far end, and I don't really want to put money in your pocket either. But we need another option. And Minds is the platform that would be the obvious choice to always be the fallback. I don't know about being the primary, but if Patreon really wants to step up and be awesome, cool. If not, we need to make sure we have other options, because I don't know, I've been really impressed at how the number of content creators has grown and how they've stayed interesting and people have continued to push forward and diversify the audience, I guess. It's not all just, a bunch of dudes talking about atheism anymore, which is cool. I mean, I like talking about atheism, but it's cool to have other subjects too.
Well, unfortunately, in their business, as with YouTube and anything, the social justice pressure sometimes becomes, they just, for whatever reason, they kowtow to it, and
so that's the thing. There's two kinds of the social justice pressure. One is the just leaning on you, the Anita Sarkeesian method, where they just tell you you're a bad person if you don't help them, and so they capitulate because it's easy press. That I really can't respect at all.
Right.
I think that Patreon did was a little more on the other end of it, where they get a whole bunch of information from a bunch of not super unbiased sources, a bunch of people telling them, hey, these people are doing this, this, and this. Here's the evidence. And it's all really, really slanted. And then they say, oh, yeah, we need to do something about that, because they're decent people who, don't want people to die. Like, at the end of the day, I can't fault them for that position. Like, oh.
Yeah, and I agree with that, but I also think this is our decision, you have no appeal. You can't, essentially no defense, or we won't provide you with what was, the evidence put against you. It's, okay, so XYZ people have presented this side of the evidence. You're not going to allow me even the opportunity to say, to give perhaps some sort of context to some of that or hey, here's some additional evidence for that. At least at least a one-time, hey, this is what's been levied against you since we've reviewed it. Give us the evidence to counter this, and we will make a decision. I mean, granted, at the end of the day, it's their company. They can do with what they want, and they are throwing money away because we know she had a huge following, and every person that supported her, patron got a kickback. But that would I mean, of course, the same things with YouTube. It's like they take videos down, and it's this man behind the curtain, arbitrary. You're okay, you're not okay. Oh, Young Turks, YouTube, they all could go through, yes.
So YouTube at least has the fallback of algorithm and sheer scale, where it's so big that you at least give them the benefit of the doubt that like policing that is just a Herculean task in and of itself. So of course you're going to have humans who do it, and they're going to have biases, and their process has to be opaque and non-accessible, and they can't handle all the appeals because they're banning thousands of legitimate accounts a day, and if all of them get an appeals process, then that's millions of dollars down the drain in staff and time. Okay, so for YouTube we kind of give them a pass. We all do that just because what else are we going to do? There's no legitimate competitor, and it's almost impossible for one to become like a real competitor at this point. In the way YouTube has. There, we can have alternate avenues to always have the backup, like Minds and VidMe and other places like that. But having a legitimate platform where you're going to get the same level of exposure seems almost impossible. But for Patreon, it's a totally different thing, right? Because the scale is just so much lower, and the amount of money involved in each creator, especially the ones that are getting banned, is actually quite a bit higher relative to the staff involved. And I can get from a corporate perspective why you would just say, no, our decision's final, and we're not going to take a bunch of time to review this later, with what you provide. Because obviously, if they're getting random information from people outside of their, infrastructure saying, hey, here's the evidence, it's bad, they don't really have a good reason to doubt that. But evidence they get from the accused and the person who's about to lose, 3, 5, 10, 15 grand a month, well, I have really good reason to doubt their evidence. So what's the point, I guess, would be like, is the benefit of the doubt reason for them?
Well, I think it would just at least then give them the fallback of, hey, we took into account both sides, and I mean, yes, I understand your point. Yes, they are going to do that, but if what say in this case Lauren Southern presented was just absolute insane trash, they could say, well, here's what we were provided, here's what she said, clearly this, they made it just they made it based on, and I have to say this allegedly because we don't know what their decision was based on, no matter what, the guy said in his video, as far as evidence, they made the decision based on evidence presented to them from one side of the argument, as far as we can see. So that would be, and again, it's their business. They're well within the rights to do, again, we talk about rights. They, people don't have a right to be on Patreon. So, I mean, at the end of the day,
legally speaking, I totally agree. They can do with their platform what they want. But legally speaking, I also don't have to patronize it if I don't want to. So that's, we're talking more on the moral level. And I'm still at that point where I want to see where it develops. I really want to see if they deliver on adjusting a bit and getting better. Even if they take the hard line, which I can get as a corporation, if they're just like, no, this decision was final and we're not revisiting it because we're not getting into that can of worms. If we made a mistake, we're going to live with it and move on. I can give them that if they continue to do better. Lauren is going to be okay. Generation Identity will be okay. The damage here will be, probably minimal. It's not like she lost her YouTube channel. It's not like she lost all contact. She's not in jail like that. I would be legitimately more worried about if all of those things happened.
I mean, looking at where she is in the spectrum as far as what she did. It's not like when YouTube or when places were dropping PewDiePie. Where it's like, oh, wait, are you insane? Lauren was definitely, as far as the scale, she was definitely a, I don't want to say fringe, but she, she's definitely, an out there type of personality. So
she's the canary. She's the canary in the coal mine of political speech. She flirts the edge.
Yeah, it's not like she's, it's not like, it's like, oh, well, geez, she's really not that tame. I've never heard her say or do anything that's really all that controversial. So, it's not like, okay, if she's, like you said, the canary, the first one to go, it's like, well, geez, that's kind of a low bar. I mean, not really. I mean, she is a controversial and known figure. I mean, how many, she's had pee thrown in her face more times than, I mean, than any one person should have at any point in their life.
That's the thing. She stirs controversy, and she tries to do it in a really intelligent way most of the time. Like when she registered as a man for her driver's license, like that was awesome. Because you look at her and you're just like, oh yeah, this is silly. But sometimes she fails at that. That's cool. Yeah. But
I mean, and let's be honest, she could probably do Crowder, open up her own website. She could easily do something, $10 a month, and could probably end up making a heck of a lot more than she was through Patreon. So, yeah, I mean, this is not she's a small channel and she doesn't have, a lot of other options. Whatever will she do? This is definitely not that.
All right, well, we got like 15 minutes left. We should probably get to the other title topics for the day. So, Minding Freedom, why don't you tell us what happened in, Berlin and Hamburg?
No, well, one was, there was something happening in Berlin, something happening in Hamburg, and something happening in Konstanz, which is close to the German-Swiss border.
You Germans getting off social media cannot come fast enough. We need to cut you off from we need to cut you off from the world.
I'm gonna tell you, we're cutting ourselves off.
Well, that's
why.
Yeah.
You know why? I recently got a notification from Minds. From Gab. When I logged onto Gab, I got a notification. Please do not do anything illegal, blah blah blah, because of the new German law.
Yeah, because
we cannot
Minds
monitor.
Can't afford a fine because Minds that'll shut them.
No, it was Gab.
Oh, Gab. Sorry. Well, yeah.
But they can't afford a fine. They're like, please don't do anything illegal. And so
please don't be German.
Yeah,
that's all.
Yeah, basically that's what it's. And in perfect German and in English, like they hired a translator for that.
Sorry, didn't mean to get off the topic. Please go ahead. Tell us what's.
Yeah.
Tell us what's.
In Berlin,
the terrorist attacks. What's going on?
Yeah. No, in Berlin it was not a terrorist attack. It was what I covered in my guest video on Roaming's channel. That Antifa closed a bookstore, an Israeli-run bookstore in Berlin. Let's call it in the ghetto, Berlin, Neukölln, which is migrant part of Berlin mostly.
Was it because of Milo's book?
No. It was because they had scheduled, I think in March, a discussion about the work of Julius Evola, an Italian philosopher, a fascist thinker from like early 1900s, I think. Who kind of laid parts of the groundwork of what the fascist movement then became. And they wanted to discuss that. It's not like they were, oh, it's so great, this book. They were like, let's talk about this. Let's discuss this. And I have no words for this. And Antifa outraged over how can you discuss something like fascist ideas. How can you discuss history? That doesn't work. They pressured this bookstore basically into closure over that.
Wasn't the article I read said they wanted to discuss ways to combat these kind of ideas and figure out the like sources for them. Like they were distinctly not trying to organize like a pro-fascism thing.
Yeah, they were. They even said themselves, "We are leftists." They were still closed.
This is the left eating its own. Like this is not the first time we've seen it, but it's becoming like a theme. If Antifa comes after your business, I guarantee the first thing someone's going to say is, "I'm a leftist."
Yep.
And then they're going to be, called a fascist anyways.
Yeah. And let alone Israelis. Like, come on. I mean, there's some history,
Right. Well, no.
Germans
Israelis
persecuting Israelis.
No. It was Jews. The Israelis. They're the new fascists.
But come on.
Well, we're all supposed to hate Israel now, right? we gotta defund them and. Minding sitting over there. He's like, I live in Germany. Don't make me say I hate you.
No. You can say whatever you want. It's not illegal, or I'm not doing anything illegal as long as you say something. That's the good thing about German hate speech laws. You can. It only works when you say something yourself. And no, but
so in other words, what you're saying is that you have to be quiet once this goes into full effect, and you can't say anything.
No, we already have the hate speech laws. Like we had them like since 1949. So
where's the reporting bureau for German hate speech? So.
You don't understand it anyway.
No.
No, but we gotta go on. We have 8 minutes. We're probably gonna do some more anyway because 8 minutes are not enough.
And the reason that no bookstores in America are being closed down is because places like Barnes and Noble are not selling Milo's book, and that would be something that they would probably protest and try to close a bookstore for. But apparently it's doing pretty well.
There is currently in Germany some, just on a quick note, some outrage from the right over a book not being sold in some bookstores, but it's a German book, and from a controversial, some would say on the right, she's not controversial. I think mother of three and author, and yeah, she's very active, like working the media and writing. So this is like her fourth or fifth book, and some bookstores in Germany aren't selling it, and there is some outrage over that now. I wouldn't call her the German female Milo though, because she's not as fabulous as Milo is with all the associations that come with it. But let's go on. On Friday, there was another Islamic terror attack in Hamburg. A 26-year-old from the United Arab Emirates went into a supermarket in Hamburg, grabbed a kitchen knife out of an aisle, and started to stab people with it. He killed one, injured four more. There were also two other people injured, more or less during the chase, let's call it. And all people injured are fine by now. But one 50-year-old man was killed. 5 people were injured by the stabber. And he was shouting, unsurprisingly, Allahu Akbar while he did it.
No. Some Arabic phrase. They're not sure what it was.
No. It was praise God.
Motivation's unknown.
Motivation's unknown.
Don't be a hateful German speaker. It's motivation's unknown. We need to learn these things, minding.
Yeah. That was what some German media were actually reporting. Like, motivation's unknown. We're not sure. We don't know. No idea what it could be.
That happens here. The only time the motivation is known is if it was a white person. then it's
How
That
lazy
is
are
racism.
terrorists? How lazy are terrorists getting at this point? Like, no prep. Just I'm going to go to the store and grab a
well,
knife and
I
stab
mean,
people.
that's
Like,
what I was thinking. I'm like, he didn't have to spend a dime. Just walks into a store, steals a knife. I mean, it's
Rips
not like
it
he
out
had
of the
to go to
package
toilet and just go to town.
Nah, he didn't
So
really
we're
go
gonna
to
have to-
town. He did it all in the supermarket, mostly.
Well, but
or
still,
just
I mean,
around.
I'm not. I mean, I would imagine if you hit a supermarket at, a busy time, I mean, there could be, 50, 100 people in a supermarket during a,
They're
rush
not
hour.
they're not as big as, especially that one was not as big as supermarkets usually are in the U.S. It was more of a city supermarket, which is like it's
kind of like a
rather
small little thing. You just
Yeah.
go pick up just something quick.
There could
kinda
have
like
been
a
there could have
big-
been maybe like 50 or at most 100 people in there at the time.
No, but still, I mean,
Yes,
there's only
yeah.
5 people injured. It could have been a lot worse.
It could have been a lot worse, definitely. And he came to Germany in 2015 through Norway, interestingly. But he came as an asylum seeker, lived in a center for asylum seekers, and he was already declined, and he just wasn't deported because his papers were missing. That was the whole reason.
He wasn't deported because his papers were missing?
Yeah, because he didn't have ID.
Well, doesn't that mean you get deported because your papers are missing? Like, I don't get it.
Did you mean
Yeah.
to say he was deported because his papers were missing?
no. 'Cause
No,
that's-
he was not deported because he didn't have ID, because he couldn't show, or yeah, because he couldn't show any papers, any ID. This is German law. I'm not kidding you.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Well,
So I don't have papers, so we're not going to kick you out. It's essentially what the Germans did.
Yeah, what the Germans
You can't prove you should be here, so we'll let you stay.
Yeah, I'm talking about ID from his home country. That's the.
Oh my!
They didn't
He
know
had,
where
he
to
had
send
some
him.
kind of papers from Germany, but from the asylum something agency something, but he didn't have any papers from his home country, and that's why. What Germany does, again, I'm not kidding you, is they get in contact with the home country, and they're like, could you please send us some replacement ID for this and that person? And then they wait for that to happen, and then they deport him if they do, and if he doesn't commit any terror attacks. But yeah, that's the practice in Germany. Like, just saying this makes me facepalm so hard. But yeah,
Jeez.
that's what it is. And then there was another incident in Constance, like I said before, on the German-Swiss border. Last night, about 22 hours ago, by German time, oh well, basically by any time, a 34-year-old Iraqi stormed a discotheque with an M16 rifle, and surprisingly only killed 1 and injured 3 before being killed himself by police. And again, media reporting, motivations unclear, but he didn't shout Allahu Akbar. At least there are no reports of that yet. But come on,
Yes.
we know it.
They were thinking it.
Yeah, everyone knows it at this point. Like, come on.
It really does feel like Germany has become, and I kind of said it jokingly, but Germany has become kind of the New England with these attacks. I mean, because we haven't, knock on wood, haven't heard anything from England in a while, but we're hearing stuff from Germany pretty consistently, while Germany is still sitting there and, scolding other countries for not taking in migrants, and yet they have this going on. It's like, okay, so explain to me again why, I need to do this. Hashtag not all migrants.
Yeah.
Hashtag not all refugees.
I had to use that in a discussion today as well. I was talking to a woman from the same political party that I am in. Weirdly enough, because she's a fucking SJW. I don't know why she is in the party, but well, she's there. So, and she was sorry for derailing this, but I think we're close at the end anyway. So, she was advocating for a 3 days of paid leave every month for every woman, just because some of them have menstrual pain. This is next level SJW shit. I'm gonna tell you, within a few weeks, you will have the same debate started from leftists in the U.S. I promise you. This is one time.
So this comes up actually. I don't want to say every couple of years actually, because there's some employers that actually offer. They have a very flexible policy of it. Let's put it that way. And it's. I mean, it's a really super white collar thing. This is not something you get in like blue collar. Like factory workers don't get this shit. But if you work for like a magazine, like, yeah, cool, whatever. Take a few days off, work from home, whatever. Yeah. But trying to get it as a paid or as a regular paid thing. I mean,
yeah, and especially like 3 days a month, like not a year. I mean, the laws in Germany are that every employee, no matter what his job is, at least gets 24 paid days of leave or days of absence, or whatever you want to call it. 24 is the minimum by law. And if you now add those 3 days a month, which is 36 days a year, you get to 60.
You can have those. Just use it from your regular, already accounted for time off bank.
Is like French by chance? Maybe this is her secret plan to bring the German economy into parity with the French.
I think her secret plan is basically to make the wage gap bigger.
Well,
because this is what it's going to lead to.
They want an extra. She wants an extra 3 days off a month, but then will complain when she's not paid as much as her male counterparts. It's like, no. And then, don't shame me because of my period, but hey, look at me and treat me special because of it.
Yeah. I was debating her for way too long on Facebook, which is the worst places, apart from Twitter, for debates of all of them. But it was so cancerous. I can't imagine.
Yeah. Well, that's Europe.
Yeah, that's Europe in a nutshell. We have one more story in the title, but I don't think we get to it. So
we'll change it later.
Yeah.
We'll do it in post.
Glad we're open about it.
We'll do it in post production.
We'll do it live.
All right. Yeah. We might have to defer this one, maybe to next week, maybe to never. Depending on what General John Kelly, Reince Priebus's successor, is doing in the next or during the next week. Maybe he makes it to next week's episode of the Rovertime Podcast. We'll see. But I think this is it. We wrap it up, right?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. That's it for this week.
One more thing. Follow us on Twitter. We now have a Twitter page.
Oh yeah, we now have a Twitter page. Is it in the description? Please tell me it's
yes.
Not in the. Wait, what? Wait. Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, follow us on Twitter. Exactly. The first link. And we have to give you some advice on what to do next, because you can't decide that on your own, can you? Nanny State. No. Anyway, upcoming is Beauty and the Beta. On Matt Christiansen's channel. The link also in the description at the very bottom. if you want to watch that, starting 3 a.m. German time, which is 9 p.m. Eastern.
25 minutes.
And what?
In 25 minutes.
Exactly, in 25 minutes. And yeah, I think this is it for this week, the Rovertime Podcast. We'll see you next week, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, as always. See you till then, and goodbye.
See you.